Good morning, and it is morning where I am located, so I apologize if this found you in the evening or nighttime or whatever. This is the Range Ronin, and I would like to make you aware of something regarding this video review. I pondered until I was weak and weary about releasing this version with its somewhat long short story prologue, questioning whether it actually added value to the review. The short answer to my question was no, but I enjoyed putting it together. So, I produced two versions of this review, this one with a short story prologue and one without, both of which I am releasing at the same time, which is probably confusing to you. If you don't wish to watch the short story prologue version, I have provided a link in the description section below this video that you can click to take you to the version without the short story prologue. Regardless of your choice, I thank and appreciate your watching either of them beforehand. With that out of the way, let me take you on this journey, starting with a short story. In 2024, a cave was discovered in central Georgia, in the southern United States. Why this cave had never been discovered before, no one knows. The crisp, clear, and chill-filled air of an autumn morning attracts hikers. This is the best time to venture into the woods, and hikers took full advantage of the conditions as they walked the many trails available to them. The area, a well-known area for hiking, had served as a haven for hikers for years, with its innate beauty and solitude. A small creek ran alongside the hiking trail, and, if one took the time to stop, mild and soothing babbling of its waters could be heard, as could the sounds of squirrels and chatter of a myriad of birds that inhabited the forest. A scream of a red-tailed hawk may also break the silence. This morning was going to be different, however, for two intrepid hikers as they made their way along a trail that would take them through the forest and to an adventure they would never forget. During this early morning walk, two hikers came across a large cave opening. It had been hidden by dense underbrush until the season's change had thinned out some of the foliage, thus revealing the opening. The two hikers, wary of what might lie in the cave, took very cautious steps when entering the small opening. A warmth of air from the cave teased at their sense of smell, a hint that something may lay beyond the opening itself. A few yards inside, the cave opened to a massive structure that took their breaths away. They could not believe what surrounded them. Torches provided a dancing light that both revealed and hid the cave's features, and the enormity of the size and scale of the cave was quite evident to the hikers as they looked upon what surrounded them. But this was just the beginning, as the hikers would soon discover. At the other end of the cave, the statuesque figures guarding each side were steps leading upward and inward to yet another dimension of the cave's interior. Moving deeper into the cave, and with hesitation, they climbed the steps and came upon a long corridor brightly lit by flickering torches on either side. As they slowly moved forward in this seemingly never-ending corridor, they strained their eyes trying to catch a glimpse of what lay beyond, but seeing yet only the flicker of another light. Slowly, the end of the corridor neared. What they saw beyond left them in awe and speechless. They glanced at each other, not knowing what to make of what was before them. A large room, seemingly cut into the mountainside, its vastness breathtaking, loomed around them. But this was not just any room. It was a library of sorts, filled from floor to ceiling, and in every nook and cranny with books, papers, manuscripts, and all manner of other documents. There was a hint of mustiness in the air, a smell well associated with an old library, of which its contents have lain for a very long time. But the smell was not as musty as one would expect. It was, in fact, as if this horrendously sized room had been frequently occupied by someone, or maybe something. Several desks and tables were positioned around the room, each laden with a pile of books and manuscripts. One desk had an inkwell and pen, positioned seemingly as if they had been used recently. But how could that be? How could this ever gone unnoticed? How long had it been here? On one of the desks, a book was opened, its pages of parchment attesting to the period and time in which it was written. Slowly and carefully, one of the hikers turned its pages, examining what was written, and drew an inward breath. "It's time to go," he said to the other hiker. As they walked more about the room, they were suddenly taken aback. There, on a disc, was a skull and candle. That in itself was not remarkable, given the decor of the room. What caught their attention was that the candle was burning, as if it had just been lit, something they had not noticed in their wonderment of the scope of what they are seeing and experiencing. They suddenly realized that all the candles in the room had been lit and were still burning. "We must go, and we must go now," the hiker exclaimed. "We are trespassing, and we need to go before whom or whatever returns." Turning their backs on the room, they made their way back through the long corridor and into the vast expanse of the cave as quickly as they could. Reaching the outside of the cave entrance, only then did they take a deep breath, inhaling the cold, crisp air of the morning. Only then did they realize that they had been inside for much longer than they thought. Time had passed quickly during their stay, and the sun indicated that their stay had been a number of hours. "We must never tell anyone about this," one hiker said to the other, who readily agreed. "If someone finds it, as we did, then it is on them." Both nodded their heads in agreement, and they began the return trip on the trail from whence they came. But what had triggered this response? As the hiker who had glanced at and turned the pages of the book on the desk stated in a YouTube video of the experience, "I didn't know what to think. The content of those pages took me back, shook me to the core, as I have never expected." But no more was said, no further explanation given, and the matter dropped, leaving only speculation on the parts of those curious. The hiker never again spoke of the event. In their haste of leaving the cave behind them, however, what they did not hear was the ghostly but whispered laughter behind them. It disappeared as quickly as it was spoken. What was contained in the pages of the book the hiker read? Stay tuned, because I'm going to tell you all about it. Having created a review of the Smith Wesson Model 642, a .38 Special revolver very similar to the Model 640, it would only be right to provide a review of the Model 640, the .357 Magnum version of the same revolver. The Model 640 is a variation of the Model 40 Centennial that integrates the time-tested features of the original with modern advancements. The Model 640 is a small frame, concealed hammer revolver that packs a definite full-size punch. The gun club and range that I belonged to had a rental Model 642. They also had a Model 640, a -2 model that just needed to be handled and fired. But before I get into the specific features of the Model 640, likenesses and differences with the Model 642, let's take a look at the basic specifications. The Smith Wesson Model 640, as stated in the introduction, has many features that sets it aside from its brother, the Model 642 Airweight, and those differences go beyond just the caliber. But let me start with that. Being a .357 Magnum chambered revolver, the cylinder is longer and beefier than the Model 642, and will chamber up to 5 rounds of .38 Special, .38 Special Plus P, and of course, the .357 Magnum cartridge. With a small J-frame revolver, as the Model 640 is, chamber pressures with the .357 Magnum cartridge can place a lot of strain on not only the cylinder, but with the barrel and the entire frame of the firearm. The frame of the Model 640, unlike the frame of the lightweight Model 642, is stainless steel and not aluminum. The forcing cone to cylinder gap, a very important gap, measured out at 4/1000 of an inch. Due to the compactness of the Model 640, the operator must ensure that all support hand fingers are far away from this flash cap. Firing .38 special ammunition would do some serious damage to straying fingers. Firing .357 Magnum ammunition would result in catastrophic injury to the hand should someone have a lapse in concentration when supporting the revolver. Someone who has the propensity to hold the front of the trigger guard with the support hand forefinger, like with some semi-automatic pistols, needs to change up their thinking and keep all support hand digits on the grip and away from the flash cap. The cylinder is nicely fluted, but honestly, I would like to have seen an unfluted cylinder, both for looks and for strength. A little addition of weight would not hurt this revolver. At a tad under 2 pounds in weight, an extra ounce or two of cylinder weight would not dramatically affect the carry characteristics of the revolver, in my opinion. The barrel is 2.13 inches, which is longer than the 1.88 inches of barrel on the Model 642. Don't expect a massive velocity difference between the two revolvers. However, do expect plenty of muzzle flash when firing the 3 ammunition options, especially the .357 Magnum ammunition. The front sight of the Model 642 is a fixed ramp type of the same finish of the revolver, whereas the front sight of the Model 640, while also ramped, is a pinned black serrated unit that provides not only contrast to the barrel, but is easier to locate on a light background, but adds little to nothing if the target is dark. The Model 640, like the Model 642, however, was not intended as a target pistol. Rather, it is a belly gun intended for use with close encounters of the worst kind. Note that the ejection rod of the Model 640 is enveloped within an underlug, sometimes called the barrel shroud, unlike the exposed ejection rod of the Model 642. This addition of the underlug, an improvement over the Model 40 Centennial and Model 642, adds bulk to the barrel and protects the ejection rod from damage. The concept of the underlug was carried forward in many revolvers that fired high-pressure ammunition, like the Models 586 and 686 .357 Magnum L-frame revolvers, and also K-frame and N-frame revolvers. The Model 640's rear sight is a channel integrated into the top strap of the frame that provides, if you so desire to use it, a sighting channel for locating the front sight. The shrouded hammer, common to both the Model 640 and 642, provides a snag-free draw from a retention device, but also limits the retention devices available for the Model 640 and 642, among some other snag-free shrouded hammer types of firearms. You will most likely find these shrouded hammer types of handguns carried in belt or ankle holsters, as the lack of hammer spur negates the use of most shoulder holster systems, although there is an upside-down shoulder holster that would capture and hold the cylinder of these guns securely. There are, also, several horizontal shoulder holster systems intended for use with hammerless revolvers. The grip of the Model 640 is longer than that found on the Model 642, and that length is greatly needed when firing .357 Magnum ammunition, as one needs all the help that they can muster when firing this little beast. The texture of the grip lends itself nicely to the looks of the revolver, but in my thinking, could be more aggressive. The rubberized composition of the grip does help when trying to hold on during firing. For my hands, I would prefer a grip that covered the backstrap, which is exposed with the standard grips. The 640 is one revolver I would not consider exchanging the stop grip with a set of wood grips. I like my hands, as they have served me well throughout the years. There are, however, a plethora of grip options for J-frame revolvers, and you just might find a grip that serves you well over the standard grip. The grip angle is good and does allow a high hold on the revolver, and a high hold is needed, placing the top of the backstrap directly into the web of the hand. That also, as with most revolvers, places the trigger finger at an awkward angle to the face of the trigger, and which results in a not so straight to the rear trigger pull that can cause the barrel to dip down as the trigger is being pulled. One must be really cognizant of this when operating the revolver to get the best performance out of one. Although available without the key lock safety feature, this model has it, and it is just above the cylinder release where it normally resides on Smith Wesson revolvers. The cylinder release is standard Smith & Wesson fare. Push forward to unlock the cylinder that is supported by the cylinder hand, the cylinder lock, and at the end of the ejection rod within the underlug. The trigger, a standard curved affair, is no different as that found on the Model 642 and many other DAO revolvers. A long and heavy but smooth trigger pull does the work of cocking and releasing the hammer. The hammer can be staged if one is mindful of the position of the trigger, but this revolver was never intended to be staged in the first place. The trigger is intended to be pulled in one continuous motion. Let me finish up the feature segment with the finish. I can say that the Model 642 is a very good-looking revolver, with the silver finish being very well done on the barrel, cylinder, and frame. Well, I think that I have covered what needs to be covered feature-wise. So, let's move on to the range session. That should prove to be interesting. I am going to place the Model 640 right with the Rossi RP63 that I reviewed on another occasion. I do not look forward to firing .357 Magnum out of a revolver this size. For the most part of this range session, .38 Special will be fired, but for the sake of those who enjoy watching me hurt myself, I will put a cylinder full, 5 rounds, of .38 Special Plus P and .357 Magnum through it, just so you can see what to expect when doing so yourself. Since the Model 640 is essentially a belly gun, a target distance of 21 feet should be an apropos distance to see what I can do with it. So, let's get to it. To be honest here, if I had a choice between carrying the Smith Wesson Model 642 Airweight or Model 640 all stainless steel revolver, I would opt for the Model 640 due to the weight and that I could still fire 38 Special Plus P ammunition, but could abuse myself by firing 357 Magnum ammunition. My choice of holsters to carry it in would be dependent on my needs. Sometimes a good strong side hip holster would work, sometimes a cross-draw holster would work, and sometimes a horizontal or upside-down shoulder holster would also work. What I will say is that I don't consider, as I also stated in the review for the Model 642, the Model 640 to be a revolver for the newbie shooter. I still submit that a K-frame or L-frame revolver is best for beginners, after which, and if they so desire, they can up the ante to a smaller J-frame revolver, as long as they are willing to pay the entrance fee for doing so, such as greater felt recoil and muzzle blast. The Model 640 is an excellent little revolver that a seasoned operator might consider to carry for self-defense at certain times in certain places. Let me close out this chapter of the Range Running Chronicles with the hope that I will see you again in the near future. Until then, take care of yourself, be vigilant, armed, and safe out there.